Imitation is the highest form of flattery. And let's be honest, no one is better at imitating their rivals than Chinese automakers. GWM is no stranger to this strategy, as in previous times they have taken inspiration from the Isuzu KB and the Toyota Yaris. And let's face it, you could do way worse when you're trying to create a B-segment hatchback or a sturdy workhorse. However, when it came to creating a rugged off-roader, the good people at GWM took their inspiration from a famous stateside brand. The question is, who did it better? Let's find out. In terms of vehicle design, there's inspiration and there's imitation. In the case of the Tank 300, I would say this car is definitely inspired by the Jeep Wrangler, but it still has its own identity, and a very good one for that matter. What I personally like about the car is that you've got old school attributes and new school design. For instance, this front grille is quite simple and flat, but these rounded off headlights make the car look much more modern. And the vehicle itself, it looks like a shell in the middle with this orange paint, but the cladding around the vehicle almost forms a protective layer, and it gives the car an overall aggressive look. And as aggressive as it looks, it's still quite simple in its styling, but my goodness, does it have quite a lot of road presence. Judging by the outside, you would assume that the inside would follow the same utilitarian theme. But then you jump in and you're very pleasantly surprised. This is an epic interior. And I love the fact that, again, it feels both old and new. The rounded aircon vents and this flat dashboard juxtaposed with this digital screen make you feel like you're in a 4x4 from the future. And regarding the screen, I love the fact that it's actually one unit. One side gives you drive information and the other side gives you all the infotainment information that you need. But here's the thing about Chinese cars. In other iterations, we've seen that these screens sometimes don't work very well and they look a bit cheap, but in this car, it's not the case. The information is displayed in a very premium manner, and the way the controls work also feel very high-end. And that leads us to the overall interior quality of the vehicle. Brands can get cheeky when it comes to off-road cars because the justification is that we used a lot of plastics in case the car gets wet and it can get dirty, so it's more durable, but sometimes that just gives you an opportunity to use bad materials. But in this car, this is not the case. Everything is quite soft. Even the plastics and the stitching is all done correctly. Even the way the vehicle smells on the inside, it feels like I'm in a premium marque.
Not only does the Tank feel premium on the inside, but it's also practical, with a generous 400 liters of luggage space. This can be extended to a positively cavernous 1,635 liters when you fold down the rear back seats.
The on-road manners of this car is incredible. Dare I say it rides better than some of its rivals out there. The way the suspension feels and the way the steering even feels in my hand, it doesn't feel like a vehicle that is more geared toward going off-road than being on the road. And that to me is a very important element about a car such as this. And the most notable aspect of this car is the NVH levels. The way this vehicle is so quiet on the inside, it's actually a little bit eerie. You would swear in some instances that I'm driving an EV. And the funny thing is, because this is the top of the range hybrid variant, in some ways I am driving a bit of an EV. This top-of-the-range spec uses a 2-liter turbocharged engine and it is mated to a 9-speed automatic gearbox. But get this, the standard variant produces about 167 kilowatts, whereas this car, because it's got the hybrid technology, produces 255 kilowatts and 648 newton meters, which is a lot of power and torque. At the same time, however, you do have a lot of DNA that you get in other off-road marques. For instance, this car does use a ladder frame chassis, but it uses multi-link suspension at the rear, so you don't have that bouncy feel that you get in a lot of bakkie-based SUVs. You can also customize a few things. For instance, if you feel that the steering wheel is a bit too sensitive, you can change the inputs of the steering wheel between a comfort mode and even a sport mode, and of course a normal mode. I've currently got the steering in comfort, and I feel like this is the most balanced setting. Another critical element about Chinese vehicles in South Africa that we've brought out is the fact that the majority of the cars are quite heavy on fuel. Now, this vehicle with its hybrid technology is set to average 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers. And I'm happy to tell you that I'm currently sitting on 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers. So far, I have exceeded that claim. So we have established that this tank drives very well on the road, and that many people who are going to be buying this car are going to be quite happy. But we know that if your vehicle is going to look like this and it's going to have all these off-road modes, it needs to be able to put its money where its mouth is. So that is why we are all the way in Hearties, because we're not only going to drive this car on the road, yes, we are going to go bundu bashing. So I put the vehicle in its sand mode. I was looking for a gravel mode, but the closest I could get was sand, because this is clearly not snow that we are traversing. So I'll put in that mode, and I've left it in its normal all-wheel drive setting. There is a low range available, but let's start off with just the standard all-wheel drive setting. So with a ground clearance of 200 millimeters fully loaded, this car can clear quite a few objects. Let's go find some rocks now. For this next bit, I have engaged low range because the terrain now is getting a bit trickier, and I want to make sure that I am able to kind of go over everything without needing to, do too much. We have now entered what ADA calls the adventure track, and that's got a combination of rocks, and it's also got sand. This is where the cameras come in quite handy, because you can really kind of judge your line quite nicely. And I'm going to go through some more challenging rocks. And this is what I want to see. I want to see how well this car is going to handle this. And now, because we're in low range, the car really gets gutsier in terms of how it delivers its power. This is where you lean on all of that 650 odd Newton meters of torque. Got a bit of a water spot here. Yeah, there we go. I love it. I love it. Oh man. I'm going to just stop and take a moment to say how incredible is this car and what it's able to do. So in the beginning, we asked who did it better. Well, it all depends on what better means for you. Most of the vehicles operating within this segment are very good going off-road, but tend to be quite compromised on-road. Whereas with this vehicle, as you can see, it's still very good going off-road, but it's not compromised on-road whatsoever. And if that's what better means for you, then I guess this is it.